You live in a neighborhood where hope died before you were born. Around here, people don't dream. They just survive until tomorrow. Home is a cramped apartment in a decaying tower block that you share with your grandmother and your younger brother. Your parents, they're gone. Your father vanished when the economy collapsed, and your mother worked herself into an early grave at a factory that paid in promises. That leaves grandmother as the only thing standing between you and the street. To keep you and your brother fed, she works brutal overnight shifts cleaning office buildings until her knees give out. You're the model student. You're grinding through cram school with one mission, becoming a prosecutor. Not for the salary, but to dismantle the criminal syndicates that bleed this city dry and finally give your family the respect they deserve. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. Without warning, grandmother collapses. The hospital doctor says she needs an emergency operation and she needs it within days. The cost is 800,000 yen. To some executive in the financial district, 800,000 yen is what he spends on a single hostess club visit. But to you, that number is impossible. It's an insurmountable mountain. It's the concrete barrier between survival and a funeral. You try borrowing from neighbors, but in this building, asking for money is like begging ghosts for help. Everyone's drowning, and the few with savings won't trust a 16-year-old with a single yen. So you quit school and start hauling boxes at a wholesale market. Your back screams under loads designed for grown men. At shift's end, they toss you 8,000 yen. You sprint home, desperate to show grandmother the cash, only to find her unconscious on the floor. Her time is running out. You beg your supervisor for an advance, but he laughs. In his world, compassion is bad business. In absolute desperation, you spot a flyer stapled to a telephone pole. Fast cash, no questions, no paperwork at all. It's your last option. You arrive at the address, a basement office thick with cigarette smoke. The loan shark shows yellowed teeth and offers the 800,000 yen at 30% weekly interest. You process the unspoken contract. No property for collateral, no issue at all. They'll simply claim your physical assets instead. If you default, they harvest an organ. The silver lining, you get to pick which body part you keep. You sell your future to the devil. You pay for the surgery. The doctors operate, but grandmother's heart stops during recovery. She dies that same night. But mourning is a privilege the desperate can't afford. Before you can process the loss, the first payment comes due. You're nowhere close to it. The collectors don't offer sympathy. They offer a beating that cracks your ribs and splits your lip. Then comes the real threat. You have 1 week to deliver the principal plus interest, or they take your younger brother as settlement to be sold to labor traffickers. Just when you're considering which organ to lose, a man in an expensive suit approaches with an opportunity. No qualifications required at all. No background check needed either. He just wants someone young, quick, and completely out of options. 1 week's payment covers your entire debt. You've lived in this district your entire life. You know exactly what the work involves. Running packages for the clans. If you're competent, you get paid. If you're not, you disappear into Tokyo Bay wearing concrete shoes. You repeat the oldest lie in the criminal playbook just this one time. In practice, the job is straightforward. You're a courier now. The handler takes you to a shuttered pachinko parlor. The route is so specific that only someone young and unremarkable could pull it off. For the first time in your life, being invisible actually works in your favor. They give you a small package wrapped in newspaper. Your instructions are simple enough. Take the train to Shibuya, leave it in a coin locker, text the number, then vanish. No eye contact ever. No conversations with anyone. You're a shadow now. The assignment proves surprisingly manageable. For 7 days, you're navigating the city like a professional, using your youth and ordinary appearance as camouflage. You collect the payments steadily. You clear the debt completely. The loan sharks disappear, and your brother is safe. You're feeling like the hero of your own story. Filled with relief and pride, you return to the handler to resign. You tell him you appreciate the opportunity, but you're returning to your normal life. You genuinely believe this is temporary work, like any part-time job where you can simply quit when convenient. But the handler's expression shifts into something unsettling. He produces his phone and shows you a photo taken this morning. Your brother leaving your apartment building. Backpack on, completely unaware. The handler speaks with disturbing calm. In this organization, resignation isn't an option. You possess value here, and wasting assets is unacceptable. You've seen faces now, routes and operations too. Structures of the organization. You're not temporary labor anymore. You're a permanent investment now. The new arrangement is clear and non-negotiable. Continue working indefinitely here, or your brother suffers a fatal accident. It proved you're too useful to ever let go. You eliminated one debt but signed a blood contract with no expiration date. There's no exit from this world. 3 months pass quickly. Your original handler gets arrested during a police sweep. You survive through pure chance. The organization notices something the others lack: intelligence. They decide you're too valuable for street-level courier work. You receive a promotion. They give you a smartphone, a designated territory, and a new title. You're now a watcher. Your function is reconnaissance and early warning. For most recruits, this is tedious work. But you're different here. You apply the same discipline that earned you top grades. You memorize police patrol schedules. You identify unmarked vehicles by subtle details, antenna configurations, and tire wear. You develop coded alert systems that confuse law enforcement. Your effectiveness increases by 200%. The local lieutenant summons you personally. He hands you an envelope thick with cash and speaks 3 words that change everything. You did well here. Those words hit harder than any drug could. Since grandmother died, nobody has acknowledged your worth. Nobody has shown you respect. Suddenly, the illegal money is buying your brother proper meals and decent clothes. You start justifying the work. You convince yourself you're a provider, a protector, a professional. The fear dissolves completely, replaced by something far more dangerous: pride. You're beginning to enjoy the game. Everything changes on a rainy evening. A rival syndicate launches an aggressive territorial challenge using violence instead of negotiation. You and your brother are caught in the ambush while walking home. You attempt to shield him with your body, but physics doesn't care about intentions, and bullets don't discriminate. A stray round from an attacker who wasn't even aiming properly tears through your brother's neck. Time stops completely now. The rain mixes with blood and screaming. You're frozen, kneeling on wet pavement, watching his eyes go empty. Your mind shuts down completely. You're waiting for death. You want it badly, but death ignores you. A clan member drags you behind cover seconds before a car bomb turns your location into a crater. You survive, but the kid who dreamed of becoming a prosecutor dies on that street. You spend 3 days staring at nothing. When you finally move again, you're not an employee seeking approval anymore. The grief has crystallized into something cold and permanent. You make an oath over his body. You won't pursue justice through courts because justice is a fantasy for the privileged. You want vengeance now, and you won't stop until every member of that rival clan is erased. You decide if you're going to be a monster, you'll be the most calculating one alive. You study strategy with the same intensity you once applied to law school entrance exams. Your ascent is rapid. Within 2 years, you're managing a district. By 28, you're the youngest Wakagashira in the syndicate's history. In legitimate business, you'd need an MBA and decades of corporate politics for that position. Here, promotions happen when someone takes a knife to the stomach or vanishes into the ocean. It's a meritocracy of violence. When the Oyabun dies from liver failure, the organization fractures. The other officers choose immediate brutality. You choose strategy instead. You understand something fundamental. Violence eliminates individuals, but politics destroys entire organizations. Instead of buying weapons, you buy a city councilman. You find a politician with massive ambition and flexible ethics. You offer him unlimited campaign funding, and in exchange, he provides protection and information the moment he takes office. It's perfect symbiosis between organized crime and legal authority. With political cover established, you launch your own community program. You use criminal profits to fund youth centers, elderly care services, and small business loans in your old neighborhood. People start calling you a benefactor. You open a community center named after your grandmother. You tell yourself you're finally achieving your dream of helping people. But something whispers the truth underneath. You're not helping anyone. You're purchasing loyalty and scrubbing blood off your conscience with charitable donations. You've become a pillar of the community, exactly as you imagined as a child, except your foundation is built on bodies instead of law degrees. With political protection and military strength, eliminating competition becomes administrative rather than violent. You rise to the top position. You're the kumicho now, the supreme boss, and your first decision is personal. The syndicate that murdered your brother doesn't face trial. Some die in staged accidents. Others simply vanish from custody before arraignment. It's methodical revenge, ironically funded by taxpayer money through your political connections. You maintain your agreement with the politician. He wins his election. Now you have a city official completely dependent on your organization. He's your most expensive asset, but extremely effective. With this immunity now, you operate openly. You expand the charitable work, building modern facilities and sponsoring local festivals. The public reveres you. They call you a guardian. Have you ever heard the story of a hero who lived long enough to see himself become the villain? Well, today we're diving into the real-life tale of a man who started with a dream to save his neighborhood but ended up ruling it with an iron fist. This is the story of how a community champion built a criminal empire. Our story begins in a forgotten part of the city, a place the authorities had written off. The streets were rough, jobs were scarce, and hope was in short supply. Into this world stepped a young man, let's call him Alex. He was charismatic, smart, and he loved his community. He saw the struggle around him, the kids with no future, the families barely scraping by, and he decided he had to do something. He wasn't going to wait for a savior. He was going to be one. Alex started small. He organized neighborhood watches to push back against petty crime. He pooled money to create a local food bank. He'd personally mediate disputes, stopping fights before they could escalate. People started to look up to him. He was the guy who got things done when no one else would. He was their unofficial mayor, their protector. For the first time in a long time, there was a sense of order, a glimmer of hope. But running a community isn't cheap. The food bank needed constant restocking, the neighborhood watch needed better equipment, the kids needed after-school programs. Alex tried to raise funds legally, but the donations were a trickle. The city officials he pleaded with saw him as a nuisance, not a partner. He was hitting a wall, and his frustration grew with every unanswered call, every closed door. This is where the story takes a dark turn. One day, a local business owner, tired of being shaken down by outside gangs, came to Alex for protection. He offered a significant weekly payment. Alex was hesitant. This was exactly the kind of thing he was fighting against. But then he looked at the empty shelves in the food bank, at the kids hanging out on street corners with nothing to do. He told himself it was just for a little while, a necessary evil to achieve a greater good. He accepted the offer. The money changed everything. Suddenly, the food bank was overflowing. He could pay his volunteers. He set up a tutoring center. The community thrived under his protection. Other businesses saw the success and wanted in. They were happy to pay for the peace and security Alex provided. It felt like a win-win. He was providing a service the police couldn't or wouldn't, and he was using the profits to rebuild his neighborhood from the ground up. But power, as we know, is a seductive thing. To maintain his control and keep rival crews out, Alex had to get tougher. The neighborhood watch slowly transformed from a group of concerned citizens into a crew of enforcers. The friendly mediations he used to oversee were replaced with threats. The protection fees became non-negotiable. If a business refused to pay, they'd find their windows smashed or their delivery trucks mysteriously delayed. Alex justified it all. He told himself he was still the good guy. He was just speaking the only language the streets understood. He built a free clinic, opened a community gym, and gave out scholarships. On the surface, he was a philanthropist, a local hero. But beneath that veneer, a criminal enterprise was taking root. The lines he had drawn for himself became blurrier and blurrier until they vanished completely. His operation grew more sophisticated. He moved into loan sharking, offering quick cash to desperate families at impossible interest rates. He saw it as helping them in a pinch, but when they couldn't pay, his enforcers would come knocking. The same people he once vowed to protect were now living in fear of him. He started controlling illegal gambling dens, arguing that it was better for the money to stay within the community than to go to outside syndicates. The man who once hated gangsters was now the biggest gangster of them all. He had a strict code, no hard drugs in his territory. He saw the devastation they caused and wanted to keep his community clean. But his rivals didn't share his principles. When a new, ruthless gang tried to move in and flood the streets with drugs, Alex was faced with a choice: let them take over or fight fire with fire. He chose to fight. This led to a brutal street war. The peace he had worked so hard to build was shattered by violence. Innocent people, the very ones he had sworn to protect, were caught in the crossfire. The community was torn. Some still saw him as their savior, the only thing standing between them and total chaos. Others saw him for what he had become, a tyrant, a man who had sacrificed his soul for power. He won the war, but the cost was immense. He was no longer the charismatic young man with a dream. He was a hardened, paranoid kingpin, surrounded by bodyguards, ruling a kingdom built on fear. He had the money, the power, the respect, but he had lost himself. He would walk through the streets he'd rebuilt and see the fear in people's eyes. They would smile and greet him, but it wasn't the genuine warmth he remembered. It was the forced deference given to a dangerous man. One evening, he visited the tutoring center he'd funded. He saw a young boy, no older than he was when he started his crusade, passionately arguing about making their neighborhood a better place. The boy talked about standing up to the gangs, about creating a safe community for everyone. In that moment, Alex saw a reflection of his younger self, and he realized with a sickening clarity that the gang the boy was talking about, the one he wanted to stand up to, was his own. He had become the monster he originally set out to destroy. The empire he built was a paradox. He had brought order, but it was the order of a dictator. He had provided for his community, but at the price of their freedom. The story of Alex is a cautionary tale about how good intentions can be corrupted by power, and how the road to hell is often paved with them. It forces us to ask a difficult question. Can an evil means ever be justified by a good end? His community was safer in some ways, but was it better? This story isn't just about one man. It's about the systems that fail communities and create vacuums for people like Alex to fill. When people feel abandoned and powerless, they will turn to whoever offers them a semblance of hope and security, no matter the cost. Alex's journey from community hero to crime lord is a tragic reminder that true change requires more than just one person's will. It requires a society that cares enough to not let its neighborhoods fall into despair in the first place. Thank you so much for watching. If this story made you think, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the complex stories that shape our world. What do you think about Alex's journey? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video.